It's the Center Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Yes! Yes! Yes, this is my favorite part of the game.
Analyzing all of the league matchups week to week.
You can't win!
Get him a body bag! Finish him!
It is a bit above average.
I said this sucks, and basically so do you.
And discussing the boom, bust, and hidden gem players throughout the league.
We ain't found shit!
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass.
Dan Marino should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell. Laces out.
Touchdown!
And here's your host,
Allow myself to introduce myself.
David Harbacken.
Hello and welcome to the Center Fantasy Football Podcast, the preview show for Season 6, Week 3. I'm your host, David Harbacken, joined once again by the coach of the Hackettstown Hagglers, the commissioner of the league, Mr. Gay Zaletzky.
What's up, people? Look, once again, we're under siege from our viewer to break it up into two shows.
Which actually, surprisingly, is kind of adding more time because we have to do the intro for this one as well. All right, before we get into the preview of the next week's games, let's look at some of the transactions that happened on the waiver wire this week. A lot of transactions took place. I can't even keep up with them all, and probably you'll look at this and start making more. But I guess the big ones that we should start with, wow, it's even more than a page. So the big one was certainly $75 for Giovanni Bernard by the Whalers. Then you have the Hagglers, you guys, picking up Jesse James for $40 and John Brown for $40, outbidding, let me look at this for a second. So you outbid, so for Giovanni Bernard, there were bids placed by Nicky Baby for $10, Black Ice Dynasty for $15, Nick and Jamie for $35, the Hagglers for $40, and Whalers ended up getting him for $75. Javarius Allen was picked up for $5, outbidding me with my $1 bid, going to Eugene to add to his stable of running backs that he's never going to move. John Brown, $40 bid, with the winning bid, outbidding Nicky Baby for $10, the 1603ers $15, Eugene $15, and $35 for Nick and Jamie. And then Corey Clement went to the Whalers, went to you. Really, you picked up Clement too? Look at that. Outbidding the Whalers, who bid $6. You spent $30 on him. How much money do you even have left? I'm actually kind of curious now that I look at it. Huh?
I have no money left.
You have $90. I mean, it's not no money. Hockey has 58 still, and 87 for the Whalers. There's still some teams. Lightning Rod's still at 207 over even what was allotted to him with the leftover money from the auction. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of transactions that happened after that as well. I mean, so much going on. I don't even know where to start. So Garcon got dropped. You picked up Brown. We went over those. Callaway was picked up by the Whalers for $6. Fitzpatrick picked up for $5 by me. As I had mentioned, I just put a flyer. I mean, I just wanted to make the bidding respectable. I didn't even think that he would be picked up. So I picked him up and dropped to Garoppolo, and then immediately picked Garoppolo back up after I saw that I got him for another jabroni that was on my bench that I didn't care about. Westbrook was picked up for $2, dropping Cole Beasley, who I'm happy to say goodbye to. Dan Bally, the kicker for Minnesota, who just newly signed. He was on was on Dallas last year. Ends up going to my team to fill the Zerline hole, but then Miner ended up picking up Ficken, the actual replacement for Zerline in Los Angeles, dropping Jonnu Smith, the tight end, who had a whooping 0 points. He didn't try to shop him around like Whalers. He just tried to drop him. Trubisky was dropped. for Rashard Penny, and then when he saw that there was no quarterbacks left, he ended up picking him back up. He picked up Trubisky for Penny after he dropped him earlier in the day. Who did he drop in order to? He got Callaway dropping. He picked up Callaway dropping Trubisky. Hockey went on a tear this afternoon, picking up Corey Grant, the Jacksonville running back. I guess since T.J. Yeldon is out, dropping Dorsett. Then he changed his defense, picked up Teddy Ginn, dropping Jordy Nelson, and then dropped T.J. Yeldon, the $121 million, or the $121 man, in order to pick up Pierre Garçon. So he spent $121 for T.J. Yeldon for a total of 9.1 points. Way to go, Hockey. What?
The guy who could have gotten for $1.
Oh yeah, he could have gotten him absolutely for $1, but he spent $121 for 9 points. So let's see. Let me do some calculations here. That's 121 divided by 9. He spent about $13.45 per point for him. So with that lead in, we can now look at the matchups for this week. As always, we don't know exactly who everybody's going to play, but let's look at the matchups and look at the predictions based on what we think will happen or what other people should do. I guess there's a couple of really interesting games to look at right now. I mean, this is really a week where, week 2, you have the 0-2 teams who are desperate. You have the 1-1 teams who are trying to, stay in the middle of the mix and not fall back to 1-2 and really find themselves in a desperation game. And you have the 2-0 teams that are just trying to continue to hold on to first place. I guess we might as well start with a battle of the 2-0s, which is Nick and Jamie versus the St. Louis Blues. One of these teams will end up at 2-1, while the other one will remain undefeated after this week. Right now, the projection is 126.15 to 119.99 in favor of Nick and Jamie in this game. So let's look at the matchups. Right now, we have Cam Newton going against Cincinnati versus Phillip Rivers at the Rams. I would give the edge to Newton in this game, I would have to think. You?
Yeah, pretty much. It gives the edge to Cam Newton. I mean, he had a major hit last week, but he was right back on the field dancing around, and the other guy was ejected, so I guess he's all right. Carolina's offense is not that scintillating, but that Rams defense, I got to tell you, they played two jabronis and the Raiders and the Cardinals. I mean, those guys are ass. So they're going up against the Chargers. This should be their first real test, but I think you're right. I think Rivers has the tougher matchup here.
Well, I think Rivers first of all, Rivers played Buffalo last week, and the week before that he played Kansas City, who we already said had no defense. So this is the first.
You're right.
Yeah. And a lot of his points anyway come up in garbage time towards the end. I don't know if that's going to happen for him this week. I mean, Hello?
This is the third time your voice just completely dropped off here. I don't know. This could hurt the quality of our podcast.
Oh, no. Well, can you hear me now?
Hear you now. It's the third time you completely dropped off the air. It's not good.
Well, whatever. I'm wondering,
we have the budget to restart the podcast.
We do have the budget. We just don't have the time to be able to do it. So do you have...
Or the interest in doing it.
All right. Well...
Sorry, viewers.
Well, hold on one second. So, all right, I think we fixed our technical difficulties right now. So, getting back to this, I think Phillip Rivers in his first week had the game against the second week had his game against Buffalo, and then the first week was against Kansas City, who we already discussed had no defense. So, and he gets his points in garbage time. So I don't think he's going to be able to do that. And I think Cam Newton actually is benefiting from not having Olsen in there, and is going to get more points. So I definitely give him the edge to him there. In the receiver battle, you have Golden Tate versus New England and T.Y. Hilton at Philadelphia versus Stephon Diggs versus Buffalo and A.J. Green versus Carolina. I think Diggs is going to get more than enough points to cover everyone, just to be honest with you. But
yeah,
Tate can get some points. I mean, Detroit is just flinging it around, and T.Y. Hilton has been pretty good, though Philadelphia might be. We'll see. I mean, might be a tougher opponent. A.J. Green against Carolina, I mean, he should have decent numbers, but I'm going to give the edge in the wide receiver category to the Blues, I think. So, I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. T.Y. Hilton was a good question mark next to
Yeah, I see that too.
Quad, I'm sure he'll be fine, whatever. Nick and Jamie, of course, just waiting for Edelman to come back, but one's got to wonder what that Josh Gordon situation is going to do to Edelman's surprise return. Now, I was saying this the other day, if you're Edelman, you feel like total dog meat, like, hey, I come back in 2 weeks, we're going to be fine. Yeah, let's bring in Gordon.
Yeah, but I think Edelman should be okay, even with Gordon, because I mean, look, this is a team that played with Cooks last year, and Edelman. Well, Edelman wasn't there, but Amendola still got his touches. I mean, he fills in the slot, and even when they had Randy Moss, they still who was their guy that was in the slot? Was it still Edelman back then? I mean,
Still Edelman.
yeah. So I mean, they always have that little slot receiver that gets a bunch of points. So I actually don't think it's going to be that devastating for Edelman at all. I think it actually helps all around for the Patriots because they have no problem feeding the ball around. All right, so then when you move to the running backs, Kareem Hunt versus San Francisco and James White at Detroit versus David Johnson versus Chicago, who's going to do nothing, and Chris Thompson versus Green Bay, who will still get a bunch of points. So I don't even know who to give I give the edge to Chris Thompson over all of these jabronis in this matchup. So I'm going to give a slight edge to the Blues in that aspect, I think. White might do all right. I think Kareem Hunt and White will do fine. I mean, Chris Thompson is going to have to just basically match them because David Johnson is not going to do dick, especially against this Chicago Bears MAC defense. But I don't know. So I'm gonna call that a wash, actually.
A wash. That's interesting. Lombardi. I mean, taking the David Johnson move, you got to understand they have no team. I don't know how he amassed 17 points in week 1, but I think that smokescreen. Lombardi's got a beer goggle on. The 6 points in week 2 is probably more like what's going to happen. And now they run into a buzzsaw Chicago Bear defense. I mean, I'm surprised he doesn't sit him. Heavens forbid you sit David Johnson, but this could get ugly real fast. And this is a must-win game for. Well, no, you're never must-win when you're 2-0, but This is for bragging rights. The Blues want to be the only undefeated team in the league.
Well, he might not be the only one. We'll talk about some of the other possibilities, but yes, he would be, first place if he could win this game, most likely, or at least at the lowest, second place. Looking at the tight end matchup, obviously you give the edge to Gronk over Disley. Then you have Jimmy Graham at Washington and Williams at Washington. Wait, what's going on? So it's the running back for Washington versus the tight end for Washington. I don't know. Who do you give the edge to? So 10 points for Jamal Williams last week, and Jimmy Graham got 15. They're either both going to do all right, or they're both going to do shit, I think. I think I'm going to give the edge to Williams. I just think that would be the more likely candidate. But, I mean, certainly Gronkowski edges out Disley, I would think. Although last week he did terribly. I don't know.
Well, that was just a matchup problem. They doubled Gronk, and he was a non-factor. That's why they brought in Gordon, because the Patriots realized one team double Gronk wasn't great.
Yeah. True. All right, then you got the New England kicker Gostkowski versus Gould, San Francisco versus KC. I mean, I think Gould might actually see some action in the New England defense at Detroit. I don't think that they'll perform as well as one would think. And then the Kansas City defense, he has got to drop them. They are awful. Certainly going to give the edge in that matchup to New England. So overall, what do you think happens in this game?
This is a very interesting matchup. Both teams have jabroni sprinkled in with potential superstars. This could come down to let's see, anybody playing on Monday? This could come down to, Lombardi has the whole team basically going at 1 o'clock. Well, this could come down to the Sunday night game with White and Gronk. I mean, this could be tied up. This is going to be one of those things where it's down to the wire. Lombardi, let's see, with Gronk and White, if Lombardi has even a 15, 20, 30-point lead, this could still be close. So, yeah, both of these teams are deservedly 2-0. This is going to be one of the better matchups to watch this week. I'm going to be curious to see who wins this one.
Do you have a pick?
I'm going to pick, I'm going to say Lombardi right now. Just because of the Diggs, A.J. Green show and Thompson, I think they have the better explosive weapons. I mean, then you get down to the second tier with Tate, Hilton, and White. I mean, Gronk's okay. He just had a bad week, but I think Lombardi has the weapons to win this one if everybody shows up.
I think so too. I think the Diggs AJ Green thing is really going to help him, and then Thompson in there too. I'm giving the edge to the Blues, but Nick and Jamie, if they could pull this one out, and move to 3-0 without even their guys, you watch out for that team. But I do give the edge to Lombardi this week at this point. All right. Let's move on to the next game. Who would you like to cover next?
The next game that we'd like to cover, let's go to Baldwin versus the Whalers in a must-win for both of these teams.
Yeah, this is quite the opposite of the game that we just covered. This is the exact inverse. 0-2 teams and two teams that frankly look terrible. But I'll let you get into this one. What are you looking at when you look at this?
In this matchup, Whalers was forced into the garbage dumpster fire quarterback market and ended up picking up this quarterback that he threw into the dumpster. That's how bad the market is. So he's going back with Taberski in a favorable matchup against Arizona. Meanwhile, Breeze in a potential shootout in Atlanta. Breeze has been keeping hockey afloat, as has Devontae Adams versus Antonio Brown. This is a great wide receiver matchup. And actually, hockey put in Cole against Galladay. Again, the first three matchups, the wide receiver matchups are good. Breeze, I'd give the nod over to Taberski, even though he's got a favorable situation. Hockey's savior is back, so I think Whalers might be in trouble here because Leonard that is back on the scene. Woo-hoo, look at that. Combined with Lindsey. Man, hockey's been playing the wrong hand at Bronco running back lately, but now he's got Lindsey back. Hockey must feel confident that he can take this one. I don't know what the projections are going on. 114 is what he's projected. Scintillating projection by the computer versus 133. I mean, Whalers is rolling Cincinnati heavy with Bernard and Eifert. Two names that don't exactly wow you, but with the injury to Mixon, I guess you got to play him, and you spent $75 from. This is a matchup of teams that overpay free agency overpayers, and let's see who actually brings home the bacon for all the money they've spent on him. His $121 man is not even playing. I'm surprised he didn't drop him. I think he did.
He did drop him.
$121 on a guy that throws him in the garbage. I love it. That's madman coaching that outfit. And let's see, Mike Williams. All right, Mike Williams sighting for the Whalers. I mean, these two teams deservedly so are circling the drain. I'm sure the Hagler could fit in, and we could have a round robin of who's the worst team. Yeah, I mean, I would give the nod to. Man, this is a tough one. I would give the nod to. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt with his Bernard pickup. Although the savior is back, I just don't see him saving his best for last, like when they're 0-12, probably. So.
Well, first of all, we don't know that the savior is back. He's picked up Grant just in case he doesn't come back. I think, look, Kamara makes a huge difference here, but he's going to be getting, the passes from Breeze. So Breeze, who obviously is better than Taberski, will be giving up some of the touches when he throws it to Kamara. So that kind of hurts the one like little edge that hockey has there. um, I think Hooper. I think Hooper's going to do better than Eifert. I actually. So I don't even know how to pick this. Because I think everything else. I give a slight edge only because of Kamara taking some points away from Breeze, making the difference. So I'm going to give the edge to. I'm going to give the edge to the Whalers at this point, but like by the slightest of margins. If anything goes wrong, that could change.
I feel I'm gonna actually give the edge to Dr. Hockey because the savior is back. I'm gonna believe in hockey. I'm gonna ride this train. He believes in Fournette. Gosh darn it, people like him. I'm gonna believe in Dr. Hockey.
All right. Well, let's see how that ends up. I mean, because the team that loses this one ends up at 0-3, and they're, I mean, at this stage, it's a tough climb back, especially with so many teams that are pretty good.
Let me ask you this interesting question: who cares about who wins? Which team stops editing their team first? Team just and stops even editing. What do you say, Dave?
I'd say Whalers only because Hockey was editing his team even when he was dog shit last year. He still thought he had a chance at like 5-7 or something. So, or 5-8 or what? I don't even know. 5-8, isn't that like how? I think that's what he finished at or something. I'm gonna say Whalers just because Hockey kept going. Although Whalers did too. Both these teams, look, both these teams have pride and they both keep. I think they play till the end, no matter what.
Both made a lot of moves in free agency. I'll give them that. They expect a lot of money.
Yeah, because they know how important this game is for both of them. I mean, look. Whoever goes to 0-3 can. I mean, you can come back from 0-3. I mean, I think you almost came back from 0-5 at one point. I mean, you didn't come all the way back, but you almost did. In your first season. So 0-3 is not the death knell. It's just that these teams have a lot of problems, and whichever one can. I mean, look. Each of them could not have had a better matchup at a better time to at least get them off the schneid. It's just a question of which one. I mean, that one at least can tread water while they try to do something. I mean, but they're still handcuffed because they didn't get any, they spent all of their money in free agency. I mean, both of these teams are in trouble, but the one who loses this is in serious trouble. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Now that we've moved past that, I mean, our fan is probably not even listening to the broadcast anymore. You can't save him for last? What's going on with you? All right, let's look at another game. Which is a really interesting matchup. The Lightning Rods versus the now titled Fitzmagic, but still the Millennials. So Lightning Rods are 0-2. Millennials are 1-1. As we discussed on the previous broadcast, the Lightning Rods should probably not be 0-2. I mean, they had two good performances in their first 2 weeks. They just ran against teams that had really good games. Last week, the Millennials had a really good game. Is this like I wonder if this is one of those chances where Lightning Rods goes 0-3 because he runs into 3 really good teams? I don't know. So let's look at the individual matchups. So first of all, you have Russell Wilson versus Dallas versus Tom Brady at Detroit. I gotta give the edge to Tom Brady there, especially with how bad Wilson has been looking. I think you would be in agreement with that. Yeah. All right. So Julio Jones, who did not perform that well last week, going against New Orleans versus Odell Beckham, who also did not perform that well last week, going at Houston. And then Smith-Schuster, who's been ridiculous, and going against Tampa Bay versus Thalian, who's also been ridiculous, going versus Buffalo. I mean, so right now, edge is going to the Lightning Rods, but only because of Tom Brady. Then we get into the other matchups, which has been a problem for the Millennials. Howard and Ajayi, who he's relying on, versus Miller and Coleman. I'm going to give the edge to Coleman right there. Everybody else is dog shit. Kelsey versus Doyle. You got to give the nod to Kelsey. So finally, we have something balancing in the Millennials' favor. Robinson versus Aguilar. I'm going to give that edge to him too, to the Millennials. Then Tucker versus Denver, and then Lutz, the kicker, at Atlanta, and then the Rams defense versus the Chargers against the Chicago defense in Arizona. And I think the Chicago defense is going to be really good there. I actually look. I'm going to give the edge to the Millennials in this one. I think the Lightning Rods is going to run up against another team that's going to just outscore them between Thalian. Kelsey, Aguilar, and the Chicago defense. I think that's going to be the recipe that's going to put the Millennials over the top in this game, because I think the edges that the Lightning Rods have in this game are minimal, whereas I think where the matchups that the Millennials has over the Lightning Rods, I think they're going to be by greater numbers.
Yeah, I would agree. Lightning Rods he's going up against three tough teams to start the season. I mean, Millennials has the firepower, and if you look at the Lightning Rod team, I mean, from Jack Doyle to Robinson to Miller, oh my God, Lamar Miller's fighting again. Besides Brady and Jones, I mean, this team, I mean, Schuster had a big game in a shootout last week. I mean, it's possible he does something, but I just think the Lightning Rods, they just don't have enough firepower. I think the Millennials have enough weapons to get this done, despite their lackluster running back play.
Yeah. I think so as well. So that'll be interesting. I mean, if the Lightning Rods move to 0-3, I mean that's just a snake bit team right there. Because they actually put up two good performances, and I think they might do a third, but still find themselves at the losing end. But they're a team that, like we said, you still can come back from 0-3, and they would have the potential to do so. Certainly more than I think that one of the other 0-3 teams that we just discussed might. But okay, we'll see. That's so. We have that matchup. Let's move to. Oh, sorry. What?
What?
Oh, I thought you said something. Never mind. All right, let's move to another very interesting matchup, a battle of the 1-1s. So we have two battles of the 1-1s. Let's start with Nikki Baby versus Tillett Trey team. Tillett Trey coming off the win versus me, and Nikki Baby coming off the loss last week to Nick and Jamie. All right, so you have Aaron Rodgers at Washington versus Roethlisberger at Tampa Bay. Roethlisberger put up 44 points last week against a very weak Kansas City defense. But you know what? He's going against another team that gives up a lot of points. I wonder if Roethlisberger can kind of repeat that performance. And I kind of think he might and outperform Aaron Rodgers in this game. I don't think he normally will, but I think in this game I'm actually going to give the edge to Roethlisberger there.
Yeah, would you give it to Roethlisberger? I mean, Washington is pretty poor defensively. I mean, they gave it 21 to the Colts. They can only score 9. And Aaron Rodgers just seems to have that magic.
Yeah, but the one reason why I might not give the edge to Roethlisberger is he is playing on the road, and you see how terrible he is on the road all the time. That's the one area that might sway me in the other direction. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then you have Mike Evans and Marvin Jones Jr. So Mike Evans is playing versus Pittsburgh, and Marvin Jones Jr. is playing versus New England against Cooper Kupp playing against the Chargers, and Sterling Shepard he's putting back in there at Houston. Obviously, you're giving the huge edge to Tillett Trey team here. I have a feeling we might not be seeing Nicky Baby on the broadcast next week, as he's a little tired. Anyway. So I'm certainly giving the edge of the wide receivers to Tillett Trey. Then you move on to the running backs, which is Nicky Baby's bread and butter. You got Gurley going against the Chargers, and Elliott at Seattle versus Saquon at Houston, and Carlos Hyde versus the New York Jets. Obviously, you give the edge overall to Nicky Baby with Gurley and Elliott, but I think Saquon can keep pace. It's just a matter of how much extra does Nicky Baby's running backs get over Carlos Hyde. I mean, Carlos Hyde should do low double digits, but not much after that. But can that make up for the difference that I think that the receiving core of Tillett Trey is going to have over him? I don't know.
Yeah, well, Barkley's going to get it. I mean, both of these, this is a premier running back matchup. Gurley and Barkley, kings of the 1-yard dump off battle here. I mean, Gurley's the 1 yard. I mean, they finally have a kicker, so they might not go for 2 every time. But I'm telling you, Barkley and Gurley. This is a matchup I've been waiting to see all season. Here, this is a good one. And then I'm not so scintillating for Elliott versus Hyde. I'm not sure about that one.
All right, then you have Reed versus Cook. Cook, who had the great first week and then kind of fell off last week, versus Jordan Reed, what has Reed done for you lately? Only 9 points last week, 14.8 the first week. Cook in the first week, he had 27 points, but then came back down to 8.9. I think this kind of ends up back where it was, pretty even. Kittle versus Burkhead. Ooh, I'm going to give the edge to Kittle there because he's playing at Kansas City, and Kansas City doesn't have anything. Burkhead also playing against Detroit, but they're bad, but not in the same way. So I'm going to give a slight edge to Kittle there. McManus versus the Denver kicker versus Bryant. So Denver's playing at Baltimore. Bryant's playing versus New Orleans. And the Philadelphia defense versus Indianapolis versus the Dallas defense at Seattle at this point. The projection is 125 to 0.64 to 123.01. Nicky Baby's favored. I think this game actually comes down to Roethlisberger. Can Roethlisberger put up good numbers against Tampa Bay, or is he road Roethlisberger, in which case he doesn't do anything, and Nicky Baby will win? But, man, it makes it tough. Oof, I don't know. Who are you picking in this one?
This is tough. It goes back and forth. I mean, if Trey had a more scintillating guy other than Hyde, and I mean, both teams in the flex are just a snoozer. And both tight ends are like, oh my god. If Trey had a better RB2, I would pick him outright. That's what makes this one tough.
Yeah.
His bench doesn't look like they have the answer there either at running back. Wow. And then Nick has Gurley and Elliott. This really is a tough one to call.
I know, it really is.
Rodgers magic. I mean, Nick's wide receivers balances out because they're pure manure.
Yeah, Shepard is garbage. But I think Shepard will do worse than Hyde will do.
Wow, this is really tough to call.
I know.
I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna flip a coin here. And heads is Nick, tails is all right. So Nick landed on heads. So I'm gonna take Nick because of the coin flip. I mean, this is a battle of two evenly matched teams with superstars and horrid jabronis balancing each other out. So I'm gonna go with Nick on the coin flip.
All right. Well, I got a coin flip right here. Let's see. We got heads for. Let's do heads for Nicky Baby since he's the favorite versus Tillett for the underdog. He'll be tails. Flipping the coin, and we have heads. I guess we both had the coin flip in favor of Nick. Nicky Baby is our pick. All right, so let's move on to the other 1-on-1 battle, which involves me versus the 1603ers versus the Black Ice Dynasty. Black Ice Dynasty favored by 2 points. This keeps moving around. I don't know what's going on with this. I looked at this earlier today, and it was like he had like 65 to 35% favorite, but now it's just moved to 52 to 48. Minus projection 120.8 to 118.07. All right, right now you have the quarterback matchup. I think this one has to favor the 1603ers. Fitzpatrick versus Alex Smith, who has not been lighting up the scoreboard as of late. So, I mean, he got 23 and 13. This week he's going against Green Bay. Fitzpatrick versus Pittsburgh, who seems to have no defense. And I actually have a wealth of quarterbacks, by the way, this week, because Garoppolo's going against KC, who's giving up like tons of points to everybody. And then Ryan going against New Orleans. And actually, if you look at it, all three of my quarterbacks, it's 1, 2, and 3 versus, who's given the most, which they're playing defenses that have given up the most points. I think 1 was KC, so that's Garoppolo. 2 is Pittsburgh, and 3 is New Orleans. But I'm going to go with Fitzpatrick. I got him for the $5. Let's take him for a ride. Let's take this Fitzmagic out for a spin. Either way, I think any of these three quarterbacks outplays Alex Smith. So I'm certainly giving the advantage to the 1603ers there. Then you have Will Fuller versus Tyreek Hill. Fuller playing against the Giants, and Hill versus San Francisco. I don't think this Giants defense is that good. We saw what Tavon Austin did to them, like on the first play almost, this last week. There is a questionable mark with Fuller. He went from healthy to questionable earlier. He's limited, but I still think he'll play. I mean, he played with a limited hamstring last week. I think that Fuller does all right. It's a question of how ridiculous does Tyreek Hill do versus San Francisco, but I think he could keep pace. Crabtree right now versus Demaryius Thomas. We discussed Demaryius Thomas and how bad he is. I'm going to give the edge slightly to Crabtree in that matchup. Then you look at Melvin Gordon and John Connor, the running back tandem, versus Kenyon Drake and Alfred Morris. I got to give the edge to the 1603ers running back core in this battle. Rudolph versus Ertz. I'm going to certainly give Ertz the, especially with Wentz coming back, I'm going to give Ertz the edge in the tight end battle. And right now, I'm still up in the air about who I'm going to play in the flex. Right now, I have Hogan right there. I'm not sure if I'm going to roll with him anyway, but we'll see. Miner has Landry going versus the Jets. But I would give. Well, what has Landry even done? Landry's 11 and 17. Hogan is just so touchdown dependent, which is what makes me wonder. But I also think that people are going to be overly focused on Josh Gordon, which is going to actually open up some space for Hogan, especially this week against Detroit, which is kind of why I'm leaning towards him. And I think he might actually get that touchdown that he's so dependent on. Miner doesn't have a kicker right now. He does have a kicker, but he picked up Ficken, so he'll put him back in there, and he's projected to get 8 points, so that'll probably boost his projection right back up. We picked up Dan Bailey playing against Buffalo. I don't think there's going to be a lot of field goals, but I think he will get plenty of extra points in that game. And then the Jacksonville defense versus Tennessee, and you got to give the huge edge for Miner's defense this week with the Minnesota defense going against Buffalo. So, I mean, overall, look, Miner has shown that he has the potential to have players like Tyreek Hill who could do ridiculous things. Same thing with Zach Ertz. But overall, I would have to think that the 1603ers should be able to pull this one out. I mean, and that's even my, I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can. And usually I actually go the other way. In fact, I'm going to pick Miner just because I don't want to jinx myself. But if you think you have to put on your neutral hat, I think the 1603ers should do fine. But as we discussed, I don't know if it was on this podcast or the other one, Miner is, hot and cold. He's due for a hot week, so because he had the cold week last week against you. So we'll see which Miner team shows up. Will the real Black Ice Dynasty show up or not? So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you definitely have it in the running backs, wide receivers. I mean, Demaryius Thomas, 5 catches for 18 yards. We already talked about that. That's pitiful. We'll see what happens against a tough Baltimore defense, or at least an average Baltimore defense. And then Ertz is coming back on. I'm a little bit concerned about Rudolph in Minnesota. He's not exactly. You said the offense was built around him, but I don't see that yet. You really haven't targeted him yet at all. You're lucky he got that one touchdown. And then Hogan, the time bomb. I don't know what. You tried to deal him away. Finally, you're playing him. I don't know. What do you do with this guy?
Yeah, I don't know either. Rudolph, I think I agree with you that Rudolph has not been getting the targets, but I do think that he could get a touchdown this week against Buffalo. I think he actually will have a good game.
And I'm assuming you're there. We just can't hear you again.
Oh.
As we have some podcast quality.
Go ahead. I was just saying I think that Rudolph is playing Buffalo this week, so I think that he could get a touchdown this week. But I agree with you that he hasn't been that great. But he's playing Buffalo. I like his matchup. But yeah, I'm going to give the edge to Ertz, obviously, especially with Wentz coming back.
All right, the overall nod, I'm going to go with the 1603ers over the auto draft team. But as you can see, these auto draft teams are very dangerous.
Yeah, they are. And Miner is, he showed in the first week that he has the potential to just light it up, so we'll see. Plus, he picked up the kicker, the backup kicker for the Rams. So, that kind of screws me a little bit. Whatever. We'll see. All right. So we have, what games do we have left? We have. Is there only one game left? Am I right about that?
That's it.
That's it. All right. Hackettstown Hagglers versus Dave's Secret Crush, a rematch of last year's semifinal game where the Hagglers upset Eugene's team. Can that happen again? Can the Hagglers play some more defensive fantasy football? I don't know. Let's see. Since it's your game, I'll let you go through what you see here.
Well, Watson and Hopkins, it's a dicey combo meal here. Going up against Cousins and Thomas. I mean, Michael Thomas has been solid gold. Eugene's team, I mean, Cousins he's threatening to play Mahomes that he couldn't shafto trade around the league to anybody else. But in this case, against Buffalo, it's hard to pull Cousins out of there. Against the Buffalo Bills with players quitting at halftime to retire, I don't know. I think you got to keep Cousins in there. Allen's been a little bit quiet this season. Eugene has already managed one shafto trade with Dr. Hockey to get him his RB1. He's going to shove Breida in there after that big performance last week. Interesting thing, Antonio Gates, he's got a championship from last year. He's unable to be shopped around at 0 points. Is he even playing? Did he even play last? How do you get 0 points? Is he Eric Decker? Oh yeah, 1 target, no catches.
Against Buffalo, by the way.
The Buffalo Bills. I don't know how much. So far he has 4 targets, 2 catches for 16 yards this season. Maybe he'll fit on Miner's team with Demaryius Thomas having 18 yards receiving. Otherwise, I'm not sure where Eugene's going with this Antonio Gates thing. So at tight end, I'd give the nod to a scarecrow. Gates getting 0 points, but Flex Godwin versus Sanders is pretty much a wash. Kickers are a wash. Defenses are probably a wash. McCaffrey versus Cook could be interesting if Cook's even playing because he looks like he's injured. Peterson versus Breida looks like a wash there. Allen versus the newly acquired John Brown from Baltimore could be a wash. And then, this could actually be a pretty close. Even though Eugene is 2-0, this could be kind of interesting. I wonder if he's going to make any last-minute moves here to change this lineup. But, of course, I have to go with the Hagglers as my prediction.
I also have some.
This one.
Yeah, well, obviously you're going to do that, but I just have some. I mean, look, I'm going to favor Eugene in this one. I think the Cousins matchup is really good, or Mahomes is going to be good either way. Michael Thomas should do fine. McCaffrey should be fine. I'm going to give you the edge in the tight end position, but I do have a question regarding your tight end, being that you spent $40 on Jesse James, the outlaw. And you have Tim Burton's nightmare during the season, though last week he did not disappoint. He got his touchdown, and he's playing a horrific Arizona team. So, but you have Jesse James going against Tampa Bay. I mean, what do you... is there any thought about maybe playing James over Burton?
I might be willing to deal James to Dave's Secret Crush for, Michael Thomas if he's interested. And he can throw in Antonio Gates. Under those circumstances, I'll take Antonio Gates off your head, too. Yeah, but overall, I'm not really sure what's going to happen in that situation. I mean, the nightmare during the season actually caught a touchdown, thank God, last week. But there might be a last-minute move to put James in there.
Well, the interesting...
there are also a couple of free agent moves.
Well, the interesting thing is that actually, so Burton plays at 125. So you have, let's see, as far as the 10 o'clock games goes, you have Cousins going at 10, Thomas going at 10, McCaffrey going at 10, Breida going at 10. And then for you have Hopkins and Watson and Brown and Cook and Peterson and Sanders and your defense, as it currently stands, going at 10. So, I mean, depending on what your score is after the 1 o'clock games, I mean, you could either put in Burton at the 125, where you could quickly pull him for James, who maybe, you put him in for the Monday night game and see what happens after that. Depending on what kind of buffer you have. So it's actually, this is one of those games that you're going to have to be managing mid-game, I think, as to whether or not you make a determination as to which tight end you play.
Yeah, that is pretty accurate. That's a good assessment.
Yeah. I also, I mean, you picked up Bortles. Bortles had a really good game last week against New England. I mean, with Fournette out, I mean, he got 41 points. Still don't know if Fournette's going to be in or not. I mean, hockey's savior. He seems to think he's coming back. I'm not sure about that. I think actually Grant might play, which is why hockey picked up Grant. So the question becomes, if what do you call it? If Fournette doesn't play, do you play Bortles against Tennessee?
If Fournette is out, it is very tempting to shove Bortles in there because we saw what he did last week with no running game. They put it on his shoulders and he actually delivered. But it is only one game and he is Blake Bortles.
Yeah, that's true. As far as your bench, you also paid a decent chunk of money for Clement. Is he going to make it into your lineup? Maybe for Peterson? Is that a possibility?
That's a definite possibility because Washington, they struggled. Week 1, they did great, but that was against the Cardinals, and everybody looks great against them, obviously. Week 2 against the Colts, which I was a little bit surprised that they had trouble moving the ball on the ground, because the Colts are known for their tenacious run defense. They trailed the whole game, and basically it was just throwing it to Thompson with his 600 catches for 15 yards. Ridiculous. Yeah, he might. There can be a couple of roster shuffle-ups by the time Sunday comes around. So we'll keep Eugene guessing a little bit. I'm sure he might make a couple changes as well.
Yeah, I mean, also, you look, Dalvin Cook might be injured, so if you have to shove in Clement in there, you could do that as well. You have a lot of options. I mean, you still have Bilal Powell. That game's going to happen tomorrow night. So a lot of questions, but there are options for both of your teams to do things here in this game. And like I said, I think there might be some mid-game management depending on how the earlier games go, which will be interesting. All right, so I think that does it. Have we satisfied our viewer in terms of time? Oh no, we're already at the 45-minute mark. I mean, both of these broadcasts are going for about 50 minutes each. Eesh. I don't know, but at least it's split up. All right, so any other thoughts on this week's upcoming games?
Nope. Should be another exciting week of fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big week because it really determines like how things shape up early. I mean, as week 1, you're always getting a feel. Week 2, you start to see some patterns emerge. And week 3 is really, and I've said this many times, week 3 is really where you start to see the players that are consistent and that actually will probably perform. And week 3 is crucial for the teams that are especially 0-3 or 2-0 because it determines, where their seating is. And for the 1-1 teams, are they going to be, guaranteed to be at least at 500 next week, or are they going to have to fight to get back there? So a really important week early on in the season, and as we see things start to shake out. And I have to say, this week has a lot of good matchups between the Blues playing Nick and Jamie. A lot's going to be determined there, and then you have the Whalers versus Hodwin. Well, some other things will be determined there. In the Tilla Trey Nicky Baby game and the 1603ers Black Ice Dynasty game. And look, if you could pull off an upset against Dave's Secret Crush, that would be the case as well. Although I think I didn't mention it, but I am going to pick Dave's Secret Crush. They are the favorite in this game, but I wouldn't be surprised knowing the Hagglers' defensive fantasy football. If they could play that kind of game, then they will come away with a win. But you have to give the edge on paper, at least, to Eugene's Dave's Secret Crush team. All right. Anything else?
Nope, I think that pretty much wraps it up.
All right. So for Gazelewski and myself, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this preview show. I can't wait to see what the comments are that make us. I don't know what we're gonna have to do to bow to our viewer next week. All right. So until then, until we get our marketing notes, I'd like to say goodbye until then.
All right, peace out.